Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a multi-trillion-dollar industry that absolutely thrives in the shadows. This isn't just about hiding cash. It's the engine that powers everything from drug cartels to global corruption. We are going to break down the entire playbook of money laundering, step by step.
So let's just imagine for a second. You've pulled off the perfect crime, and now you have $1 million in cash sitting in front of you. Great, right? Well, not exactly. You can't just waltz into a bank and deposit it without setting off every alarm imaginable. So how do you make that dirty money clean? Turns out there's a playbook for that.
And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're a small-time crook or some global kingpin. Everyone follows the same fundamental three-stage process. It's all designed to turn that illegal cash into clean, usable money. You've got placement, layering, and integration. Let's kick things off with the first, and honestly, the riskiest step of them all.
All right, first up is stage 1, placement. The goal here is simple, but it's incredibly dangerous. You have to get that giant pile of physical cash into the legitimate financial system. And this, right here, is where most criminals are likely to get caught.
Okay, so one of the most classic placement tactics is something called smurfing. This is basically money laundering 101. You take that big stack of cash and you just break it down into hundreds of smaller, less suspicious deposits. And the people who do this boring, tedious work, they're called smurfs. And no, not the little blue guys, but real people hired to just feed cash into the system, piece by piece.
So what's with this specific number, $9,900? It seems weirdly precise, right? Well, there's a reason. In a lot of countries, any cash deposit of $10,000 or more automatically gets flagged and reported to the authorities. So what do the Smurfs do? They stay just under that radar. They'll deposit, say, $9,900 at one bank, then drive across town to another branch and do the exact same thing over and over.
But maybe you don't want to hire a whole army of Smurfs. Well, there's another classic method. Use a business that handles a ton of cash as a front. I mean, think about it. A coffee shop, a bar, a laundromat, any business where physical cash is constantly changing hands is pretty much the perfect cover.
So here's exactly how it works. The business basically acts like a sponge for all that dirty money. Let's say your little cafe makes a legitimate $2,000 in sales today. All you have to do is report $4,000 in income. You just mix your $2,000 in dirty cash right in with the real money. You deposit all of it, you pay your taxes on it, and boom, just like that, it's clean.
Okay, so the money is officially in the system, but now you have a new problem. It leaves a paper trail. And that brings us to stage 2, layering. The goal here is pretty straightforward. Make the money's journey so incredibly complex, so confusing, that no investigator on Earth could ever trace it back to where it really came from.
So how do you create all that confusion? Well, the #1 tool in the toolbox is the shell company. Someone once called it the Swiss Army knife of money laundering, and that's pretty accurate. See, a shell company looks real on paper, but it doesn't actually do anything. It has no office, no employees, no real product. Its one and only job is to hold money and, most importantly, hide who really owns it. This is exactly how oligarchs hide their super yachts and corrupt politicians disguise their bribes.
And just watch how fast this gets crazy complicated. A launderer might set up a shell company in a place like, say, Panama. And that company is set up to own another shell company, maybe this time in the British Virgin Islands.
And that's the company that finally goes out and buys the asset, like a fancy flat in London. By the time any investigator tries to unravel this web, they are totally lost in a maze of international paperwork. The real owner? They're basically a ghost.
Another really clever layering trick is something called trade-based laundering. This one uses what looks like legitimate international trade. Here's the scam. The official invoice says you're shipping, say, 10,000 luxury handbags, which justifies a huge wire transfer. But in reality, the crate that actually gets shipped has maybe 500 cheap bags in it, or sometimes it's completely empty. The paperwork looks perfect, but the value of the goods is pure fiction.
So the money is in the system, and its origins are totally buried under layers of confusion. Now for the criminal's favorite part, stage 3, integration. This is the finish line, where the money finally re-enters the economy looking completely legit and ready to be spent.
So how do they pull this off? Well, there are a bunch of ways. They might buy and then flip some real estate, claiming the profit is just a normal capital gain. Or they could pay themselves a massive salary from one of their fake businesses. They can even make it look like the money is a repayment for a loan that never existed, or declare it as fake winnings from a casino. The whole point is to create a believable, legitimate-looking source for the cash.
Real estate, by the way, is a huge favorite for this final stage. And this brings up a really interesting point. Have you ever wondered why so many luxury apartments and condos in big cities just sit there, totally empty? It's because a lot of the time, they aren't even meant to be homes. They are, quite literally, hiding places for money, a way to park dirty cash in a stable asset that looks perfectly clean on a balance sheet.
Now, so far, we've really been focused on the criminals themselves, but you have to understand, large-scale money laundering doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It relies on a network of secret helpers and some incredibly advanced systems. This is where the enablers come into play.
And that brings up a huge question. I mean, with all these rules and regulations, how do billions upon billions of dollars in dirty money still flow through major well-known banks? Who is letting this happen on the inside?
Well, the tough reality is that banks aren't always just getting tricked. Sometimes they're complicit. It could be as simple as a single banker who's been bribed. Or maybe the staff is just careless or poorly trained. It could even be quiet instructions coming down from management to not ask too many questions about a particularly wealthy client. The system itself can be designed with these kinds of blind spots.
Okay, get ready for something that is truly next level. One of the most sophisticated laundering systems ever created is known as the black market peso exchange. This is a complex, almost parallel economy that cartels use to move their drug money from the US back home to South America without ever actually wiring it across the border.
Now this looks complicated, so let's walk right through it. A drug cartel has millions in US cash. Step 1, they give it to a broker in the States. Step 2, that broker finds a legitimate Colombian business that needs to buy American goods. Now here's the genius part. Step 3, that Colombian business pays for the goods in clean, local pesos directly into the cartel's bank account in Colombia. And finally, Step 4, the broker back in the US uses the cartel's original dirty cash to buy the American goods for that business. What's the result? The cartel gets clean money in their home country and the cash never physically crossed a border. It's an almost perfect system.
When you really boil it all down, all of these incredibly complex schemes, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, they all serve one main purpose. As one source put it perfectly, the real power of offshore banking isn't just hiding money, it's hiding ownership. Because at the end of the day, anonymity is the ultimate prize. So why does any of this really matter? Because money laundering isn't just a financial crime about cleaning some cash. At its very core, money laundering is the engine that turns crime into influence. It is the mechanism that converts illegal profits from drugs, trafficking, and corruption into legitimate political power, sprawling business empires, and high social status. It's the gear that keeps the entire criminal underworld turning.